Okay. So yeah, we're going to quickly go through a few prophecies which are apparently at least incorrect. And I think if you actually go through the wordings and see what the wording they're actually saying, it's quite clear that these prophecies did not actually turn out to be true. But either Muslims or Prophet himself tried to make up excuses about why they did not come true. So this is something from Quran. This is chapter 8, verse 43, and this is about when a prophet saw in a dream that they were going, since they were going in a battle. Prophet saw in a dream that the size of the army that they are going to fight against is going to be quite small in size. And but however, it turned out that this prophecy that the army that they actually fought was quite large in size. I mean, way more than expected, and or way more than what he saw. So in the Islamic perspective, what you have to understand is that for a prophet, a dream is a revelation. It's considered considered a revelation from God. And even if you read the wording of the Quranic verse, it is clear that Allah wanted to communicate something. So if you read the verse, remember, O Prophet, when Allah showed them in your dream as few in number. What it means is that by them it means the opponent's army. So Allah showed them, as in the opponent's army, in your dream as few in numbers. Had He shown them to you as many, you believers would have certainly faltered and disputed in the matter. But Allah spared you from that. Surely He knows the best what is hidden in your heart. So the excuse that so what happened is, as I mentioned, is that they were going in a battle, and Prophet saw in a dream, and he mentioned that, and it is all apparent from this verse, that he saw that in his dream, that the size of the army of his opponent was very small. But when they actually went into the army, went into the battle, the size wasn't that small. He had mentioned that to his companions. It's not that this was only something that he saw and kept it to himself. He actually mentioned that to his companions. How do we know that? Because if you read the verse, it says, had he shown them to you as many, you believers would have certainly faltered and disputed in the matter. What that means is, if Allah had shown the prophet that there were many, the opponent's army was very large, prophet's companion would have faltered, and they would have sort of become fearful, and maybe even have become a bit concerned, and might be fearful of and might not even go into battle. So in order to spare them from that fear, and not giving them the strength to actually go into the battle, in order to not scare them away, that is the reason that the prophet is giving, that why Allah's vision or Allah's communication to the prophet was incorrect. Now imagine that you're sitting in that time, and prophet is telling you, well, tomorrow we are going into battle, and I've seen, Allah has told me that the size of the opponent's army, our opponent's army is very small. The companions become very happy, but when it turns out that the size is not that small, companions would say that, well, prophet, you said that the size is not is very small, but it is a very large army. And did your prophecy, because it is a prophecy in a way, why didn't it actually turn out to be true? And the prophet actually makes up an excuse for that, actually, it turned out to be incorrect because Allah didn't want you to be it didn't want you to be fearful, and he actually wanted you to go into the battle. Otherwise you would not have actually even gone into the battle, because of the fact that you would have been very scared. So this actually is, I think, it's a good proof that this was a prophecy which and ended up being wrong. It's just that prophet made up an excuse for that. And if this had
I think
happened,
I
Muslims
think
should think that, okay, yes,
somebody could say, a Muslim can say, "Oh, wow, you see, Allah protected His prophet pretty
yeah,
much."
yeah,
Or you can look at it
yeah,
both ways, pretty much, right?
exactly. But I'll tell you what. No, no, no.
Yeah,
And this is where I'm going to go next. What I'm telling you is,
yeah.
just imagine. So Muslims are going to look at it in this way. But just imagine that this was not your prophet. This was another person claiming to be a prophet, and this has happened with him and his companions. And when you had, if Muslims had come to know about what something like this happened, they would have immediately dismissed that, this is a proof that that prophet, that person who is claiming to
Yeah,
be a
for the
prophet,
people who are
is
not believer at that time, yeah, for sure. Right.
exactly. And that is what
I
they have to
agree.
understand, that no,
Right.
for the people who don't believe in that person, it is very obvious that that person made an incorrect prophecy, and later on he tried to make an
Right. Right. I
excuse
mean, you,
to just make up that, why his prophecy turned out to be wrong. So, this
right.
is something that Muslims should look at neutrally and try to understand that if this had happened with a person who claims to be a prophet, but who was
Yeah.
not Prophet Muhammad, Muslims would have jumped up immediately and claimed that, no, no, you see,
Yeah. You have
your
to
prophecy turned
imagine
out to
being
be
in
wrong.
that place at that time and just
Exactly,
listening to this
exactly,
prophecy. And
and
now
it
would
would
you
be
believe
crystal
into
clear.
that that
Exactly.
prophet? Basically,
Now
that's
would
the
you,
question.
yeah, now would you accept that as an excuse that that their God actually lied, according, because in that case your God is lying. So,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that is one, prophecy number one. So this is the prophecy number two. It's a bit. You could make up a few excuses for that, but I'd still want to discuss this. So this is Quran, chapter 48, verse 29. There's incorrect heading. This is not the Quran 8:43. It is chapter 48, verse 29. And in this
Mm,
verse, it is said that Muhammad is a messenger of Allah, and those with him are firm with the believers, with the disbelievers, and compassionate with one another. Now, this statement that the Prophet's companions are compassionate with one another. Now, that statement, I think, turned out to be incorrect, because his companions fought wars amongst themselves. So, claiming that they
exactly.
were compassionate amongst themselves, well, I think they were actually firm with themselves, and I think it's quite obvious that they were as firm, at least, as they were firm with the disbelievers. So did this turn out to be true? I don't think so. So I think,
I think this could be, Callie, could this be, sorry for
yes,
interrupting you. Could
yes,
this be instead of taken as a prophecy? Could you say just it's a contradiction in a sense, in a statement rather than a prophecy?
you see, then we'll have to discuss what a prophecy means, right? So in a
Right. No, no,
way, it is about,
just taking it.
it's
I
both.
mean, it's
It's
still
both.
incorrect information. It's still incorrect information
Exactly.
rather than, yeah, it's
Exactly.
still
It's
incorrect
both, right?
information.
It's inconsistent because it was at the same time it's wrong, but
Yeah.
we are considering at the
But the
same time
events are
because
taking place in future, right?
exactly, you have to look at
That's
it from
what
the
the point.
perspective. You have to look at it from the perspective that when Prophet said it and when it actually happened. So
Right,
Prophet
right.
said this
I
during his
agree. I mean,
lifetime,
yeah,
and just
yeah,
immediately after his lifetime, this happened.
yeah. It's a very
So yeah,
thin line between those two, maybe.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, so the next one, we don't have to spend too much time on this one, but the next one. Okay, so this is a hadith from Sahih Bukhari, which says that when Khusro perishes, there will be no more Khusro after him, and when Caesar perishes, there will be no more Caesar after him. Prophet also said, "You will spend the treasures, both of them, in Allah's cause." Now, you see, this in this case, well, it turned out that the Khusro that Prophet mentioned during the Khusro is the was the king of Persia at the time. That was the title of the Persian king, Khusro. So Prophet is saying that the Khusro who's there right now, there will be no Khusro after this one, and there with the Caesar who's there during the lifetime of Prophet will be the last one, and there will be no more Caesar after him. Caesar, it's called Caesar. Am I pronouncing it right, or is it Caesar? Right, Caesar.
Julius Caesar, yeah, Caesar,
Julius Caesar, right? Caesar.
right.
So Prophet is claiming that there would be no Caesar after the Caesar who's right there during the lifetime of the Prophet. But if you notice, the last Caesar actually turned out to be the one after the Prophet's life, after Prophet had died, who was Constance II. He actually was born in 630, which was just near the death of the Prophet, and he died in 668. He became the Caesar in the year 641 after the death of his grandfather. So in this case, Prophet is saying that there will be no Caesar after this one. However, it turned out that there was a Caesar after this one. His prophecy turned out to be correct in terms of Khusro, but it turned out to be wrong, clearly wrong, in terms of about when it comes about Caesar, right? So this is also a clearly incorrect prophecy. And what Muslims should also consider is majority of the prophecies that Muslims often quote, by the Prophet, to be coming from the Prophet, they are not time bound. But the prophecies, I'm not aware of many time bound prophecies which are time bound, or which specify a specific time. This one is a time bound a time bound prophecy, because it mentioned this, that this person is going to die, and there will be no one who will have this title after him. So it was in a way time bound, because once the Caesar dies, that time ends. It doesn't have to be specific year, but it was when the Caesar dies, in whatever manner. So this, when the prophecy turned out to be time bound, well, immediately we can see some problems, right? So there are not many time bound prophecies that Muslims can give an example of, and I don't think of uh, any time bound prophecy which exists. Maybe there are few, but I don't. Maybe some of them actually are there, which relates to the period before the hadiths were documented. Of course, like the khilafat will be of 30 years and all that. But again, the same problem applies to that. So given there are such prophecies which turned out to be wrong, I think Muslims should seriously consider that. Is it actually the case that all of the prophecies that Prophet uh, you know actually gave were true, or turned out to be true? Of course, Muslims make up all these excuses. They are aware of this case, and they make an excuse that, well, he didn't mean he. Sorry, Mahadan, do you want to say something?
Madan back
Mike, yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
feedback.
no,
Mike
I
is
didn't
coming
want to
back.
say anything, but I was thinking of saying in this situation that that would be really good if there was time-bound prophecies, right? If there was one after another time-bound prophecies, and you couldn't appeal to the fact
Right.
that it was a self-fulfilled prophecy. That's getting close to the
Right,
perfect, multiple number of perfect prophecies that I talked about. And by perfect prophecy, I just
exactly.
mean that it fits the criterion. But imagine that. Imagine if lots of like that existed, real time-bound prophecies, and not something that you could easily predict, very clear. You don't have to achieve it through. It's not something that you can really achieve through human effort, or it's very unlikely to be achieved through human effort. And it's set
Exactly.
throughout history. Like in this date, this will happen. In this date, that will happen. And yeah, that could be very very rare. It'll be definitely very different from any other astrologer or psychic. You know, because they don't really get it that right. And even if it doesn't fit the probability thing that I talked about, it might not exceed the improbability principle, because David Hand would say, based on the size of the earth, it might not be impossible that at least one culture may have just got it right multiple times. So I don't know, and that might be mathematically correct. Remember, we're not arbitrarily making these things up. I'm saying statistically, it forces
Right.
us to think this way. But I would still be very surprised if that happened. I would that improbability principle concept will not, even though that's the rational conclusion that it can still be explained through large probabilities, large numbers. Sorry, I would still be baffled. But the fact that it's not like that, there's no time-bound prophecies of very, very little, and whenever it does try to do it, it gets it, gets it wrong. Not just an imperfect prophecy, but an incorrect prophecy. That tells me then again what I said in my conclusion, which is when you have these flaws, is it more likely to be explained through naturalism versus God? God could have just designed it all differently, but He didn't. So this seems to be a human product.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree.
agreed. There are quite a few other prophecies that whenever you have a conversation with somebody who's propagating Islam, or your Muslim friends and all those people, or even on internet, you come across somebody whom you are having a chat with, and those the fingernail, not what it is, fingertip prophecy, the fingertip mark, fingerprints, basically. Yes, fingerprint prophecy, that their skins will bear witness against them. Yeah. those
I
kind
don't
of.
associate, or you're referring to scientific prophecies now then, because in a way
Yeah, scientific prophecy,
it's
right? Scientific
more, yeah,
prophecy.
it's more
That is
about,
right. It is
yeah,
scientific prophecy, right? Though
in a way.
quite a few of scientific prophecies you get to hear, right? Pretty much,
Yes,
not the
exactly.
general prophecies, by the way.
Right, right.
Right. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finally bring one. See, most of a large part of the prophecies are eschatology based, pretty much, right? And there is this one hadith, I think.
Should
I
I
think
should I f- should I first move to the last one that I have? I have one more.
I thought you were done. Sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no.
Go ahead.
I have one more. So just want
Okay.
to
Okay. I thought, yeah.
present
Yeah.
that, and then
Sure.
we can move.
Sure.
So this one is the last one, which is about, and I think that was this would relate to. Then you can very smoothly, move over to yours as well. Maybe you were referring to this one. So eschatology. I mean, and this is about world's end. So this is a hadith from Sahih Muslim. Again, I have given a wrong heading. Made this slide in a bit hurry. So it's from Sahih Muslim, and it says Aisha reported that when the desert Arabs came to Allah's messenger, they asked about the last hour as to when that would come. And he looked towards the youngest amongst them and said, if he lived, he would not grow very old that he would find your last hour coming to you. Now that what is in bracket, that he would see you dying. Now that is not what the prophet was saying, right? There was a very specific question that was asked to the prophet: when will the last hour happen? And the prophet said, well, there's a young guy over here. He will not grow old before, he and you know and then you'll find that the last hour has already arrived. So this clearly did not happen. Now Muslims make up, once again, they make up excuses for about this, that actually what it meant is the last hour for all these people is when they die. So when people die, that is the last hour for them. Well, is that the question that person was asking? Was that person asking that when will I die, or when will my last hour be? I think that's a ridiculous way to answer that question, and I think it's very obvious that that is not what he meant. Even even there are a few. I don't have that link over here. There are clarifications under in the bracket. It is said that, oh, it does not mean as it was commonly understood that that this is referring to the last hour, meaning the very exactly the truly last hour. Rather, it means the that person's own death.
No,
What
Mahathir,
that means is that,
sorry, Kelly, there is another problem. The
right.
I don't know where the titles of the chapters came from, but if those are to
uh,
be trusted, the approach of the hour
yeah,
cannot have
exactly,
some individual's dying hour or time,
exactly, it would
basically,
be a
right?
meaningless answer, right?
It will be a
You
meaningless less answer. So
Yeah, yeah,
you can
you,
make all the jalebis you want, but you'll have to eat
exactly.
them finally, right? All of them, pretty much. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's obvious that some of the explanations under similar hadiths, it clearly mentioned that people thought that it meant that actual a last hour will be there before that child grows old. But it turned out that no, this didn't happen. So then Muslims actually made up another explanation that, oh no, actually what it might have meant is that the people are going to die, and the person's death means the last hour for them. So once again, Muslims are going to make jalebis to explain this, but it's obvious that this is not what he meant. He clearly meant the question that was asked from him. He answered that question. If he was trying to answer what you were actually imposing onto that, or what you're projecting onto this hadith, then I think he knew what how to describe those that in simple Arabic, right? That your last hour will be when you die. That's all you should be concerned with. He did not say that. He gave a very elaborate example of a child, saying that, well, this child will not grow
No,
old before.
that's
Yeah,
even senseless answer, pretty much, right?
exactly, exactly. But I'll tell you, if someone tries to I probably Muslims will, if they actually see this, and if they comment on this, I know this is how they'll respond to this, because this is what their standard response is to these hadiths, to this particular case. And there are several hadith. This is not just one turk. This is not from a single chain of narration which people could actually just dismiss by saying that, oh, this is not a sahih hadith. This is number one, this is a sahih hadith, and this is from multiple chain of narrations, so they cannot dismiss it that easily.
Right, right, right.
Okay, so that's all from my side. Yes, fire away.
All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add something that we have already talked about a lot, and yeah, we have already talked about this hadith. We have beaten it to pretty much. I'm still gonna share it. Can you guys see it? And
Yes, we can see it. It's a bit small, but yes, you
and
can
it,
zoom it, right?
okay, I'm gonna zoom it in. All right, let me see how it's looking out there. And okay, so it's from
Yeah.
Sunan Ibn Majah, right? 63. And Darussalam has graded it Sahih, right? But, there are disputes over it. But in any case, so this is the prophecy that talks about those. You see the highlighted points is what we have
Yes.
been talking about. And there might
Yes.
be multiple narrations about this in other hadiths as well, but
Uh,
this is the one
there
that,
are.
yeah,
We've shown them in the previous video we made on prophecies, right? When we were
right,
responding
right,
to Mohammad Hijab.
right. So you see here it's written shepherds over here competing in constructing tall buildings basically, and this is what they talk about. One of the problems, one of the things that the question, and this objection was raised by Hassan Radwan in his Medium page, where he says why prophecies don't work basically, and he brought in another hadith where. Uh, so I'm going to present another one. Right. So here, what they could have done if they were the descendants of these, Bedouin, whatever Bedouins, right? Desert dwelling shepherds or Bedouins, whatever you want to call it, which was what implied by Muhammad Hijab for UAE or Dubai building the tallest building.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me just. I'll be back in about 10, 15 minutes. You just long, yeah?
Sure.
Is that okay?
We might close in
All right.
probably
You
in
might
10
close
minutes.
in. Yeah, before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'll still be back. If I'm not back, then bye from me for now.
All right.
It's just been too long. It's almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
I just
All
He
right.
said it's almost been three
yeah.
hours. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost been 3 hours, right? All right.
We'll go on
Got it.
in a minute. I'll back to bye from me for now. Yeah.
All right. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So let me bring that these. All right. I think here it is. Can you see what it is?
Zoom
I
in.
need to I need to zoom it in. So the only point I'm trying to make is if they were to, say that this is the prophecy that's come true, tallest buildings and all those, then why couldn't they add a simple word, offsprings of those people from the nomadic tribes, right? When
Exactly.
there is
Yes.
there is another hadith which clearly mentions those things, right? So these are smaller discrepancies that you find, and you can see that those things are not precise, prophecies basically, and really
Exactly.
vague. So yeah. In any case, I
Exactly. I
think
mean, there is no
let's.
reason. Yeah. Yeah. There is no reason to not include that if that is what was meant. If it meant to say that it was the children of these Bedouins, then I mean, it could have said that simply, but it did not.
Right.
Yeah. But it
At least
made
the
it more
prophecy would have become a little bit more precise, right? You
specific.
you still
Exactly.
would have needed a few more criteria to be met from the 6 point criteria that we have listed in there. But
Exactly.
at least it would have, would have been one step closer to being a decent prophecy, at least, right? All
Yeah.
right. I think,
Totally agree.
Kelly, we've covered a huge ground today. I think it's
Yeah.
a very long stream after a long time. So I think we should close it in today. Oh, we want to put in some
Yep.
last remarks before we close it.
No, no, I
Closing
think
remarks.
we have said a lot today. So yeah, no,
All right.
no more
So
closing
all I'm
remarks. I
gonna
think Muslims should consider listening to this and just understand the criteria that we have mentioned, and that I think all of that stems from the primary, uh, you could say, motto that one should have when they are analyzing any sort of prophecies, which is we can only attribute supernatural causes to any prophecy or statement once we have already exhausted all of the possible naturalistic explanations that could possibly be there for that prophecy. So we should not jump on to a supernatural natural cause until we have exhausted all the possible natural causes for that prophecy or for that statement. So
right.
that is
And what? Yeah,
the
yeah,
primary
yeah.
motto under which you should see all of those criteria, because this is just
Right.
what our common sense tells us, right? We shouldn't just immediately conclude that something happened because of a supernatural reason. We assume that it happened because of a natural reason unless there is very strong evidence that no, there is no possible natural reason or cause for this to happen. Then only we could go on considering, or we can consider that okay, maybe there is something supernatural going on. Otherwise we shouldn't even
Yeah.
consider a supernatural source.
Right, right, right. And one more thing, from a very Islamic prophecies perspective, Khali, and probably this is gonna take another minute, maybe, or maybe even less, is that we are talking about these prophecies that are written right now. We showed a couple of prophecies that are being gloated by people like Muhammad Hijab and others, basically, right? And these are coming from Hadith literature, pretty much, right? And problem is, this literature has been written after, and it's there is a scholarly consensus on this, that they were written probably 200 to 250 years after the events that they describe, basically. So if something is written so late, and they are talking about prophecies, though those were made probably 250 years earlier, it becomes exceedingly difficult to trust those sources, pretty much, in terms of at least those prophecies, basically, whether those prophecies
Right.
were kind of in a sense written later, or they were really prophesied at the time that they are asserted to have been, or at least claimed to have been prophesied at the time, basically.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
those are a couple of at
That's
least problems that we all see here, right?
and I
Kelly,
think
so
just to, sorry, can you hear me?
sure, sure, go ahead.
Okay. So I'll just also, since you just mentioned that, I'll add to that another point, or another point that Muslims should actually consider. You see, Muslims find it very difficult to understand that why are we so skeptical when it comes to hadith being reliable, or maybe these hadith tellers were actually lying, or they were fabricating hadith. You have Muslims should think about it. Number one, there were actually people who were fabricating hadiths. There, in fact, many of the hadiths, in fact, there are people who say that majority of the hadith literature was fabricated, was full
In
of lies.
Sahih Bukhari's preface, I
Yes,
think he writes that 98% of the hadith he had to reject because
reject.
he
No,
couldn't
for
trust the
whatever reason, yeah, he couldn't
yeah,
trust.
yeah, whatever the
Yeah.
reasons were, basically.
People say it was because it was just the same hadith with different chain of narrations. He remembered all those different chain of narrations, and he had only mentioned 7,000 out of all of those. But there is no proof of that. They just say that so that it doesn't sort of disprove or discredit their entire corpus of hadith. But there are people who were there at the time who who it was obvious that people were fabricating hadiths. So it is obvious that there were actually people who were fabricating hadiths. Now, what Muslims now find it difficult to understand, once again, and something, another point that they find difficult to digest, is that people who were considered sikha could also have been lying, or could have been fabricators, or could have been munafiqeen, if nothing else. You see, Muslim, you might not be able to identify a munafiq, right? Munafiq is someone who hides his faith, or hides his main motivation or intentions. What if there were people within Muslims who were munafiqeen, who at the
There,
time of
there were
tabi'in and tabi'in, they were, right? So
there were
the Muslim,
munafiqeens because Abu Bakr,
exactly,
the battle of Yamama was one of those battles where a lot of munafiqeens had left the
Exactly.
religion, basically, right? So I mean, you can't
Exactly.
discount those cases pretty much, right?
Discount those guys.
I mean, it's all
Exactly.
in your books. It's not that something we are coming up with, basically. This is all part of your history. You have to,
Exactly.
if you believe in that, you have to believe these parts as well, pretty much, right? At least
Exactly.
trust them that though there was munafiqeens in numbers, you know.
When they say that it is, I mean, the kind of reliance that they put on ilmu rijal, well, can those people who were actually, compiling all this work on ilmu rijal, did they have any means or supernatural way to uh, identify who were the munafiqeen at the time of tabi'in or taba tabi'in or the time of hadith compilation? What if they were true fabricators who were hidden as some pious people, right? There can be people like that who we can misjudge a character, right? We can misjudge people. So why couldn't the people who were these scholars of ilmu rijal, how could they not be wrong? Now let me tell you an additional point maybe it's a food for thought for Muslims. Now, just like you can't find yourself, you cannot make yourself even consider the fact that your early scholars were not pious people, were not true believers, were not very pious, or they could fabricate something towards their religion. Similarly, Christians have same beliefs about their early scholars. However, you Muslims
Exactly.
believe that they actually fabricated all those things. Jews have the same belief about their early scholars that they could not have fabricated, or they could not have even, murdered Jesus, who was the true Messiah, despite knowing that he was the Messiah. Although Muslims believe all of that, that the Jew scholars, they knew that he was Jesus, and yet they murdered the prophets, right? So just like
Yeah.
you can so what you have to understand is, just like there were people, there were scholars who were lying for their own benefit, who used to do horrific things like even murdering people, like prophets, according to your religion, according to your Quran, they used to kill prophets, right? Despite even knowing that they were prophets. Similar could be the case. Why don't you apply similar skepticism to your own scholars? Maybe
Similar
many of
standard,
your own
yeah.
scholars, exactly, maybe many of your own scholars were not that pious. Maybe they were just pretending to be pious. They were just
You know,
they were
one
just
one more
pious
example.
because it was something. Yeah. So I mean, just I'm just giving them food for thought, because
Right,
they
right.
should understand.
One
They
one
cannot
more
even
example for
imagine. Yeah. Yes. 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 Follow.
sure, sure. Just one more example of a munafiq that comes to my mind is not something that they would think through it, and it comes from the hadith literature again. This guy is the cousin of Osman, right? Abdullah ibn Saad ibn Abisar, basically, right? You remember the guy who said, "Okay, should I add this as well?" So you never know how long he was a munafiq for. Basically, he was a katibin, basically, right? He was a katib, basically, right? He was
Mm,
among one of the
exactly.
katibin, pretty much, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
there were all these people in there, and so this, yeah, uh, they all these
I mean,
things, you never know. Okay,
yes.
yeah, please go ahead.
And I
Thank
mean, there were people. So just to further give you an example, give Muslims an example to understand how difficult is it, even according to your own religion, to understand or identify a person's intention, or about how pious they actually were. So there was a person who died fighting during the time of Prophet, and the Muslims around at the time, they sort of said that they expressed their awe about that person, that that person is now in Jannah, he's a shaheed, he died in the way of Allah, and all that. They were praising him, right? And Prophet said, well, actually no, he's not in Jannah. The Prophet, people like, why is he? Well, you see, he said that he did not die because he did not die for Allah. He died for his own tribe, for his own fame, for his own status. His motivation was not for Allah. So that is not the case. So now, similarly, if people can misjudge a person's intentions, a person who's actually dying in a battle fighting alongside Prophet, if such a person is someone that you cannot actually attribute piety to, or maybe you cannot be sure about that person's piety, whose piety can you be sure of? I think nobody's. So I think this is just
Exactly,
another example that
exactly.
Muslims should consider, that you should be there is there is
I
reason to
think,
be there is
Khali,
reason to be
Khali,
skeptical about your scholars.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, Khali, what I'm thinking is, because we brought two very big examples, we should have a reference if we have, maybe what we'll
yeah,
do
yeah.
is we'll add the
Will, yeah,
reference later on to this
later
incident.
on, yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
and
We will do that.
underneath our, so
Maybe in the
guys, if
comment
you're,
section or in the
yeah, in
description.
the
Yeah,
comment section or maybe in the description section, we'll add this. And if
yeah,
not, maybe you
we
can
will do
write
that.
to us and ask us, anybody who's,
Exactly. Okay, so I
anything
think
more
that's
to
all
add
for
or,
today. No, no, no,
all right.
nothing else.
All right. All right. So, everybody who's listening or who's going to listen to it, please like, subscribe, and share as much as you can. Basically, if I think this one was a Cali, this one was a very very different stream, because this is something we've really
Yeah,
wanted to bring this criteria, because I don't think not too many people have put in such a robust criteria for judging prophecies. Basically, at
yeah,
least ascertaining the
exactly.
truthfulness of prophecies. So this stream should be there as a beacon for something for everybody to judge. Maybe I hope lots and lots of people do listen to it and understand what this criteria is all about, and then